So, you think my GoPro 10 footage from the mall flight was pretty impressive, right? Unfortunately for you, I'm a liar and I have a dirty little secret. What is that secret? Well, actually it wasn't the GoPro 10, it was a DJI O3. And then you must say, okay, well that was some pretty impressive O3 footage. The mall must have had really good lighting, right? And that would be my second dirty little secret, and that is no, the footage was actually pretty bad, and the lighting in the mall was substandard. And that's actually the point of today's video. I'm gonna show you how to take DJI O3 footage and just massage it into something that goes from 0 to hero. This is Dr. Quads, and you're gonna learn something. I did not steal that. So here it is, here's that beautiful O3 footage that you guys thought was real. We're gonna turn off all the color grading that I've done, and voila, that is what I was working with. You have some highlights, you have some pretty deep shadows. Overall, it's underexposed. It's the beauty of the O3. That 10-bit color is no joke. I mean, the difference between 8-bit and 10-bit is massive, guys. It is not a small thing when it comes to color grading. So we can take this footage and turn it into something like this. And I'm gonna show you how to do it. Here is one of my node trees.
Holy Jesus. What is that? What the f*** is that?
Now, before you click away, I'll tell you two things. One, I'm going to be giving this node tree, and actually both my node trees, to the Patreons. But if you're not subbing to the Patreon, I will be showing you in this video, so you'll just have to follow along. It's just kind of a way for me to show a big thanks to all the people that have been supporting me. I'm gonna give you these node trees so you can actually just one-click import these, and I'll show you how to do that. Okay, so what you do is you go down here in your clips. This is the ungraded clip. Okay, we're gonna take this footage, we're gonna right-click it and click groups. Now we're gonna make a new group because we're gonna be showing you how to do it. So we're gonna call this DJI O3 new. Okay, there we go. Then what you wanna do is you go up to clip right here. You see this little drop-down menu. You go to group pre. Now you're gonna click on power grades, and this is actually where you're gonna be dragging the files that I'm giving you. So all my Patrons, you just drag the files I'm giving you into this little window right here, and these power grades will be there for all your projects. There's gonna be one called HSV Pre, and then there's gonna be one called Post O3. These are the two I use to help me, get a kickstart. So we're gonna click on this right here with our middle mouse button, boom. And you can see it's actually gonna copy all these grades over. And then you're gonna go up here to Post, and then boom, middle mouse button. You can see you've applied these as well. We have noise reduction. You can see it's turned off, and that's Control D. Control D, if whatever you're highlighting, will turn off and on. Now, Control D, you turn off noise reduction because this is really heavy on your CPU, and you don't want to be activating this till you're done. This is a black and white node. The reason why this node is here is because I want to get my levels right for this image before I actually start adding color. And that's just a little technique that I've learned from some professionals, because sometimes color can mess you up. Like, things can look differently. Like, this looks much brighter now down here, but it's actually not. You can see this, like when you make it black and white, you'll see the actual light levels. You got these really strong lights that are peaking. You see these little dots there? That means light is peaking. That's probably these right here. That's probably these lights. I'm not super worried about those. I'm not gonna grade my image based off of a tiny little pin light that's overexposed, because remember, you're trying to get the majority of the image looking good and not worrying too much about all the little tiny details. Okay, we're gonna bring this down a bit, get a little bit of contrast up in there. Okay, yeah, that's looking pretty good already. I can bring my gamma up a little bit. Now what these are: lift, gamma, and gain. Those are your main ones. Gain is highlights, gamma is midtones, and lift is your shadows. That's just the best way to think about it. So I'm gonna scrub around and look for some interesting like right here, I could do for a little bit of shadow lift, just a smooch. Okay, there we go. Just a smooch of shadow lifting. Now, obviously you can grade shot by shot, but with a long flight like this, it's really tough. And so I kind of just opted towards going for the best and most well-lit thing I could. Okay, this is actually looking pretty good. You can see now, just from that, my footage went from garbage to looking a lot better. Now we're gonna turn off our black and white so we can start seeing the color, because this will be now, like, you'll have to change things. You can see just from that, We've lifted a lot of the image out of poverty. Let's find a good place to grab white balance from. I think right about, yeah, I think it was like right here. Okay, yeah, right here. This should be a good place to grab white balance. That's looking a lot better. Now, ISO, don't worry about that so much. I'm actually not really using that. This one is kind of an intermittent one. This is some advanced stuff. I'm not going to get into it now, but just don't touch that one. Color and B value, you actually don't need to touch either. So the reason for this setup right here that looks so convoluted is because there's a couple ways to get subtractive saturation. One of them is to buy the Pixel Tools Hue Shift DCTL plugin. Pretty amazing. $1,000. You know, like, oh, baby. No, thank you. We're actually just going to accomplish the very same thing, albeit a little bit more manual, but it is the same thing with these 3 nodes right here, essentially. So gain sat, when you add or subtract gain, it changes the saturation, but it changes the saturation in a way it emulates film. When you go saturated, the color actually gets darker. You see that? You see, and it is very rich. It's a very film-like rich kind of thing, and I've really fallen in love with this, but you do got to be careful because it can crush your image it's very intense. Now, just to kind of give you a representation of how this works, if you go to like ISO and you bump up your saturation the normal way, you see in the parades over here, you see that? The colors that are getting more saturated are actually getting lighter. And they can it can handle, the O3 footage especially can handle more saturation the normal way than it can handle the saturation the film way. So you see here, it can't handle that, so it falls apart. But that's okay because we're gonna be really light on it. We're just gonna get some nice color in there, and oh, that's looking good. Go ahead and scrub around your image and just take a look. It's pretty intense, some of these colors. That's actually what the qualifier is for, by the way. This is super advanced. I would recommend you leave all of this alone. Like, leave all of this alone except for gain sat. This is for some advanced users. You can take this here and you can isolate a color out, swap it. So now it's not so intense anymore. And now what you would want to do is use the qualification saturation to affect those colors. So now you see you have the retro and the print. These are kind of pre-nodes set up. You can just turn them, I usually just turn them off and on. I never really modify them. If you want a retro look, which adds blue into the shadows and orange into the highlights, or actually specifically red, you can kind of see what it does here. It just kind of cools the image up and pops out the highlights a little bit more. It's not always appropriate, but in this case, I think it looks pretty good. The print basically emulates what would be printed. Like when you print something on a piece of paper, your blacks are not going to actually be that deep. They're going to be a little bit kind of, washed out. And it's very pleasing. If you have too much contrast, your eyes can get really tired. So that's why this film emulation kind of look is very pleasing to the eyes. Most of the heavy lifting you're going to be doing is right here in the group pre. This is getting your footage to a place that's acceptable. Now the fun part comes in group post. This is where you do your style looks. This is like where you really start putting some flair, and we're going to show you what we're doing here. So I'm going to pop these out. The skin right here, I never touch it. Most of these nodes, by the way, you won't actually be touching. They're there for if you're getting really advanced. But I would say you're just going to be using your looks, the look nodes. This is really what it sounds like. You're going to be adding a look to it. If you want to add like some orange into the highlights a little bit, that can be kind of fun. I actually kind of like that. But we do got to be careful right here. Oh, that's really orange. So let's actually also add some teal into the shadows. Kind of bring that down a bit. Yeah, there we go. And now we're getting, that's looking good. I think that actually looks better than my first grade. Oh man, I'm really liking that. Okay, and this is so much fun. Once you get your image to like an acceptable place, the post is where you just have so much fun. But the best part is you're like later down the line, you're like, oh, you know what? I don't really want that. Oh, I have to do everything over again. No, just hide the node. Just hide the node. And you can kind of go back. And that's why I have 4 looks here. I don't always use them all. I'm going to try, let's add some blue into the highlights and orange into the shadows, which is very unconventional, but we'll give it a shot. It's got a very weird look to it. Not really super fan. Like that looks a lot better. But okay, yeah, hey, maybe you're going for something like what your story dictates is what you're gonna do. This is very yellow. Yeah, let's go back to it. This is nice. I really like this look. Okay, the best part, the most fun part is I'm pretty much done. If this is for a job, you might spend a little bit more extra time kind of really nitpicking and fine-tuning some of the saturation, things like that. Like maybe this is a bit too saturated. You can kind of see I'm peaking at the top of these parades here. Maybe I can even go back to the post and say, let's just bring our highlights down just a smooch. Yeah, to now we're like not going so crazy with the highlights. Okay, that's a little bit more tame, and this is going to be more of a filmic look, not so vibrant. I think for like FPV footage, more vibrant is a little better if you're not like mixing it with traditional camera. But maybe you want to go for more film look. But I'm going to go back because I think that actually, you know what? Now that I'm looking at it, I'm thinking like, yeah, just bring that down just a bit. Like I'm going to be clipping. Like this is just the limitation of the O3 is it doesn't have the dynamic range that like the 12 or the DJI Action 4 has, which that is a big reason why you might want to buy one of those action cams, because the dynamic range of the O3 is nothing to write home about. The color, the 10-bit color is awesome, but the dynamic range, you're going to be really limited with what you can do. So we're going to go back to post, and this is my favorite part, and this is really the secret sauce of Dr. Quads. How do you make your footage look like it was filmed on the Action 4 or the GoPro 12? Here we go. We're going to add some aperture diffraction. You see that just pops those highlights out. Even though it's making them clip even worse, I've found that it's kind of okay because it adds so much of a stylized look to it that it's really great. You want to scrub through your footage though, because watch what can happen. If you have this too bright, you're going to scrub through your footage. You see like this is crazy now. So these kind of parts where there's like light on dark, it will go too nuts. The reason why you don't want to do that is because you're going to be giving away your secrets. The second that someone sees an image like this, even though it's very fun looking at like stylized wise, they're going to know what you're up to. And really your job as an editor and as a videographer is to not let people know that they're watching a movie. You're kind of just like sweeping them up in a story, right? And so if they're too aware of your techniques, they're going to be, you know, oh, look, he did that thing. They're going to be thinking about like how you edited it and stuff, and not how like what the actual story is telling them. So, okay, this is pretty good right here. A little bit strong right there. You can see like sometimes it'll be stronger than others. You gotta be really careful of that. Yeah, I'm gonna dial that back just a smooch. There we go. Now we can't really tell that it's aperture diffraction. There we go. Okay, this is probably the weakest image of the entire thing. But in order to change this, I'll have to change everything. So we're, you know, it's a short segment, so we're just gonna let it be. All right, now in FX2, we can add halation. And that just is something that really emulates a lot of the film look, but it's a bit too intense now. Thanks to Nomad for teaching me about the saturation technique. You can dial that saturation back if the saturation's too heavy. So I'm gonna do that right now, like get the saturation kind of reined in. And you can also kind of dial the strength back and just kind of get that strength right where you want it. There we go, that's looking pretty good. A little bit, we can Control D to kind of see what it's doing. It's not doing much. You don't want to go crazy with it. Now, when you're first starting out, you're going to go crazy with it. Like you're going to go crazy with it. That's okay. You need to really kind of go too far and then reel yourself back in as you keep editing and start learning that actually less is more. Okay. And then next one I can add, and I did add in this one, is glow. Now, glow is going to help out a lot with these darker shots. You can kind of see here, boom. You see that? It just kind of brings out some of those darker those areas that were really kind of making it look a little glum, and it pops them out. So that's really great. I'm liking that a lot. All right. Yeah, this is really fun. This is a lot more of a striking grade than I did for YouTube, because I did spend a lot more time. I'm feeling a little bit yellow here. You know what I can do? We're going to go back over here. Where is that image? There we go. Ooh. All right, it's really yellow. Let's pull some of the yellow out of this entire image. So we're going to click on our levels right here. Then we're going to click on hue versus sat. I usually just click on all of these colors down here, and that gives me these little handles. We're going to bring some of those yellows down a little bit. It's going to pull out some of that yellow saturation. Don't go too crazy with it because it will fall apart if you do that. We're just going to bring some of that down. Yeah. Let's see what that does. That kind of, yeah, that now we're getting a little bit better, but now we're feeling a little bit dark here. What can we do on that? Let's go back. See, this is what's really great about this method is you can kind of go back and say, okay, let's go back to our balance where we're actually we're going to bring up those midtones a little bit and bring up the shadows just a smooch. We're going to go in ISO and we're going to add a little bit of contrast. There we go. I'm liking that. Okay, let's just kind of scrub through a little bit and make sure that we haven't broken our image, and it's looking pretty good. Okay, yeah, this is nice. It's coming together nicely. And a lot better now. It's not too intense. You can see like this is really blown out. Like this little screen back here is completely blown out. You can see that on the scopes. Boom. But that's okay. It's one of the benefits of FPV is that, you know, it's a short segment where it's actually blown out. So people aren't going to be like dwelling on the fact that you blew out your highlights there. Okay, and last but not least, once we have those three, those are the main three that I use, you can add another one, and this is the funnest one. Film grain, if you want to make it look really cinematic. If there's, I don't recommend film grain unless you have like a person as your main subject or something, right? Like you need a recognizable shape. Otherwise, the grain will kind of catch their attention too much. But I like to use film damage. Boom. Oh my gosh, that's really just destroyed my footage, but it's also added a really awesome kind of film look to it that I really like, but it's too much though. So we're going to go into film damage in the settings right up here. I think it's in effects. Yeah. We're going to go into settings, and you can see all the settings for this. Film blur. That is a little too blurry for my taste, but mind you guys, one thing I can suggest to you is turning your sharpness down. Update your goggles in your O3 if you haven't, because they added the ability for you to turn the sharpness down to -2. Absolutely do that. O3 footage with the sharpness set to anything but -2 looks absolute trash, and just don't do it. So like, remember, if you have good subjects and good flying, you don't need it to be 4K. 1080p with a little bit blurry, like, it looks beautiful, looks amazing. Remember back in the day, you watch old movies that were like in 720p or even worse, and they still look beautiful, because what's more important than anything is color, dynamic range, contrast, and interesting subjects. Resolution is literally the last thing that you should care about. Sound is much more important, you know, good music choice. But anyway, so yeah, turn down the blur a little bit though, because that's too blurry. Now nobody can focus on anything. They feel like they need glasses. That's a little sharp. We're gonna go just a smooch. Yeah. Then I'm gonna add, I'm gonna take away the scratch. I don't really like the scratch. It's too telltale. It shows people exactly what's going on. Then, last but not least, this is the best part about DaVinci, guys. This is what I really love about it. Once you learn how to use DaVinci, you feel like an absolute master at what you can do. You're gonna go down into here to where it says key, okay? You don't need to know all the stuff. You just need to know key output gain. So it's kind of like the opacity of the effect. I really love this slider. Like this, I use this all the time because I really like this effect, but I don't want to change it yet. It's too strong. Okay, just dial it back a bit to like 0.75. 0.75, just kind of wheel your mouse back and forth, find that. There we go, right about there. Oh man. This is coming out really nice. Now, we're looking a little green right here. Let's go into our another look. Go up into our levels, hue versus sat, add our handles, and drop that green down. I don't think that's green. Is that blue? A little bit of blue. Let's kind of bring this over a bit. Yeah. There we go. We're going to do this here. Okay. And let's actually just add some blue into it. Okay. A little cold. In fact, it's actually kind of looking just like my original. We're gonna go back. I'm gonna go back because I want to do this one a little bit different than my original. I like it. It's good. This is looking really nice. Now let's just take a look, right? Just like in the beginning. Go to edit. Drag this timeline down. There we go. There's our edited, our color graded, and here's our original. Look at that, guys. Look at the difference of this image versus that image. Such a better image. Wow. And you know what? Is it stylized? Hell yeah. And that's the secret, guys. Don't just make the same old footage as everyone else. Do something interesting with it. That's why I like the O3, because it's 10-bit color. Now look at this right here. You see these streaks of light? It's too much. It's too much. It's too much. Like, people are going to know exactly what you're up to, and they're going to feel like they got you cornered. Don't ever let people know what you're doing. unless you're making a YouTube video. We're going to dial that back just a little bit. There we go. And that kind of just reins things in a bit. Yeah, there we go. Nice. This is now a story. It's not just an FPV flight. It's not just some cool footage of you flopping around S-bang like a tuna fish out of water. This is a story. And that's what you want to do, guys. You want to make a story with your flight. Even when it's, listen, even if it's freestyle, even if it's flying out in a park, make a story. And part of that comes in your editing, but also part of it comes in your color grading. So that's it, guys. That's pretty much how I did it. And if you want to get access to these node trees, they'll be on the Patreon. And thank you so much to all my Patreons. You guys are awesome. This is Dr. Quads, and I hope this helps you in your journey. Keep flying, guys.